What if I told you that the pain you're experiencing now is part of a greater plan? No, it's not a coincidence. It's not bad luck. And it's not punishment either. There's something happening behind the scenes in your life, something you may not yet understand, but which has a profound purpose. Have you ever noticed how, in the Bible, the greatest miracles happened amidst the greatest crises? It was in the desert that God spoke to Moses. It was in the lion's den that Daniel saw divine protection. It was in prison that Joseph was prepared for the throne. The question is, what about you? Are you in your desert right now? Maybe everything is going wrong. Maybe you see no way out. Maybe you're beginning to doubt whether God really cares about you. But He does. More than you realize. And sometimes, His silence is just a sign that something greater is about to happen. Today, we'll delve together into the truth about pain, faith, and starting over. Let's discover how ordinary people, just like you, found strength in God to carry on, even when all seemed lost. So subscribe now to the He Loves You channel, activate the bell, and open your heart to what God wants to reveal to you today. Because this message didn't come to you by chance. There is a purpose, and it's beginning to be revealed now. There are times when everything you've built begins to crumble. Relationships, dreams, finances, health. It seems like the ground disappears from under your feet and all that's left is silence. The worst silence, the one in which you pray, and it seems God doesn't answer. Have you ever experienced this? It was exactly like that with King David. Anointed by God, chosen among many, and yet he spent years running for his life, being pursued by Saul like a criminal. Imagine this, he was promised a throne, but he lived hidden in caves. He had the calling, but it seemed he was going in the opposite direction. David wept. David was afraid. David questioned. But he never gave up. Because even in the midst of persecution, he knew God was still with him. Like David, we all face an antagonist. Sometimes it comes disguised as emotional pain, other times it's rejection, abandonment, a lack of answers, or fear of the future. The big question is, how do we keep believing when everything seems to be falling apart? This is the real challenge, maintaining faith when circumstances dictate otherwise. And that's when many give up, not for lack of strength, but for lack of hope. But if the Bible teaches us anything, it's that trials never come to destroy, but to reveal who you truly are in God. And if you're in this difficult moment, know this, it's not the end. It's just the beginning of your transformation. Have you noticed that God doesn't immediately remove you from the struggle, but walks with you through it? It's in this process, between suffering and response, that God shapes our character, strengthens our faith, and prepares us for something greater. It's not easy. It demands surrender, trust, and above all, perseverance. The prophet Isaiah wrote something powerful amid the pain of the people of Israel. But those who wait for the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. This promise is not for those who give up. It is for those who wait. For those who, even without understanding, continue to believe. It is in this place of total dependence that God begins to act supernaturally. Consider the story of Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, unjustly imprisoned. But even so, he remained faithful. Years later he understood, it was all part of a much greater plan. Maybe you're in that process right now. And it's okay not to understand. It's okay to feel tired. But it's not okay to give up. Because what God is building within you is worth far more than what He will yet give you. The solution isn't just deliverance, it's in the spiritual growth that happens during the trial. The secret is to trust. Even when everything around you says it's impossible. Because that's where the miracle begins to be born. In the heart of those who choose not to let go of God's hand. There comes a time in life when you need to make a decision. Either you continue to sink into the pain of the past, or you choose to rise up in faith, even with your heart still wounded. This was precisely the turning point for so many men and women in the Bible. Moses hesitated when called. He felt incapable, held back by insecurity. But when he decided to obey, even though he didn't feel ready, God used him to free an entire nation. The turning point doesn't happen when everything is resolved. It begins when you decide to trust. Maybe you're waiting for a sign, an answer, a visible miracle. But the greatest miracle happens within you, when, even without seeing it, you believe. This is what Jesus wanted to teach Peter when he called him to walk on the water. While Peter focused on Jesus, he walked on the impossible. But when he looked at the wind, he began to sink. The turning point, then, doesn't depend on the circumstances. It depends on where your gaze is. You can continue to focus on the problems, or you can look up and say, I will no longer live in fear. I choose to trust my God. When you change the posture of your heart, the heavens begin to move in your favor. The strength that seemed distant begins to be born. The hope that seemed dead breathes again. And that's when everything begins to change. God doesn't expect you to be perfect. He only waits for you to say, here I am. After the pain, the struggle, and the waiting, the new beginning finally arrives. But it doesn't arrive as a noisy spectacle. It arrives silently, profoundly, and transformative, like a peace that invades the heart, even if the world around is still in chaos. The journey thus far hasn't been easy. You've faced doubts, fatigue, loss. But something has changed within you. You've learned that faith isn't the absence of suffering, but the presence of God in the midst of it. And when that becomes real, everything takes on new meaning. You realize that scars aren't marks of defeat, they're testimonies of survival. And what seemed like the end was actually God repositioning you for something new. It's as it says in Romans, we know that in all things God works for good for those who love him, for those who are called according to his purpose. Not everything was good, but God turns everything into purpose. Just like Joseph, who could look into the eyes of the brothers who betrayed him and say, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. You too will reach the point where you look back and understand, it was worth trusting. The pain wasn't in vain. The tears weren't ignored. God saw it all, and used every detail to strengthen you. Now, you are stronger, more mature, more prepared. Because a true new beginning isn't about going back to the way things were before. It's about living what God dreamed of from the beginning. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Perhaps today you felt God calling you back. Perhaps he reminded you that you still have a purpose, even amidst the pain. And if this video touched your heart, then it's time to act. Subscribe now to the He Loves You channel. Here, every day, you'll find words that strengthen your faith, heal your soul, and remind you that God hasn't given up on you. Activate the bell to receive each new video, because the journey continues, and you are not alone. Like this video, it helps more people receive this powerful message. Share it with someone who needs hope. Sometimes, a simple gesture like this can be the sign they've been waiting for. And look, there's more tomorrow. Our next Good Night with God meeting will bring you a new word of comfort, straight to your heart. So, mark it down. Every day, a moment of faith to renew your soul. The walk with God is daily. And together, we are stronger. Leave a comment below to let us know how this message reached you. Tell us what God spoke to you today. Your testimony could be the encouragement someone needs. Remember, you didn't get here by chance. God has something great to do in your life, and this is just the beginning. See you tomorrow at our Good Night gathering. May God bless you powerfully.